for the day. I will start with a really quick piece of setting the stage here. Now that we've uncovered the science behind why recognition works, we wanted to talk about specific moments in an employee's journey that we can inject recognition into. And so this next conversation is all about how leaders are weaving recognition into onboarding to help new hires feel like they belong, that they are valued from day one, and to really drive retention for the long haul. And so we've brought together this panel for you. And these are all leaders who are putting these strategies into practice every day. And I know they're all excited to share what they've seen work. And so for this session, we really wanted to hammer home a couple of key takeaways. So we want to talk about how to integrate recognition touch points into all aspects of onboarding. We want to talk about how we can start reinforcing core values and culture since day one through appreciation. And lastly, we want to talk about how to build trust and connections with new hires to improve retention. And so without further ado, please help me welcome Michelle, Jenna, and Jay. Kaylee, I'll now pass it to you. I know you'll be facilitating this one, so we can totally start with some introductions, and you can lead us into the fireside chat. We can start with who you are, what you do, the company you work for, just to give a bit more perspective, and we can talk a bit more about the perspective you hope to bring to the conversation today as well. So Kaylee, over to you.
Amazing. Well, quick introduction. My name is Kaylee. I'll be your host for this session. I am a account executive over here at Bucket List, and I've been here for about 2 years now. So excited to be chatting with you all today. And Michelle, you were first up on that slide, so I'm going to hand it on over to you.
All right, I'm ready. So my name is Michelle Twombly. I am the manager of rewards recognition and wellness at Ahold Delhaize USA, which is part of the US family of brands, which includes 5 leading omni-channel grocery store brands. So Food Lion, Giant Food, The Giant Company, Hannaford, and Stop and Shop. And at our company, ADUSA, we support all of those brands with a wide range of services from legal, financial, e-commerce, technology, and a whole lot more. So together, us, along with those other companies that I mentioned, we comprise the largest grocery retail chain on the East Coast and the 4th largest grocery retail group in the nation, serving millions of omni-channel customers each week. And so for me and my role, I consider myself a little bit of a recognition enthusiast, an engagement advocate, and a community builder. So I have the incredible opportunity to help shape the associate experience through meaningful, impactful programs that celebrate our associates and support their well-being. So just not just in their lives, but not just at work, but in their lives. So from designing thoughtful recognition initiatives to implementing wellness strategies and managing competitive compensation and benefits, everything we do is around enhancing engagement, fostering a culture of appreciation, and ensuring that our associates thrive. So we feel that when our associates are seen, rewarded, and cared for, it drives connection, performance, and long-term success. And I'm super proud to be part of that journey every day.
Amazing, Michelle. That was a great introduction. I feel like we've known each other forever at this point. Jenna, let's BFFs. We're connected on LinkedIn. We're old friends now. Jenna, you are up next.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna. I am the Leadership Development Coordinator at Lakewood Health System. We are a healthcare system in central Minnesota. So we offer service lines from birth to hospice. We are in a rural community, so it's a unique form of healthcare. We do a lot of partnerships, and we're very proud that we are able to remain independent as a healthcare system. So we're not a part of a large conglomerate, and I would say it's something that not only our patients and residents, but team members feel like at Lakewood, they feel known, they feel seen, and we try to wrap that into our culture here. at Lakewood. And so with my role is really to develop leaders. I've been doing it for about 4 years and absolutely love it. It's such a fun, rewarding role to be able to connect with leaders and encourage them to connect with their team and build their skills so that they're able to build good cultures within their departments. So that's my role here at Lakewood. I loved how you said, Michelle, that you're the engagement enthusiast. Is that what you said? Yes,
Self-described, yes.
it's beautiful. Because I feel like a similar role in our organization. Like I feel like sometimes the rewards and recognition piece is you're just trying to bring the spark back into people's workplace experience. Like how do we notice people? How do we celebrate the person who got the front row parking spot when you come into the office? It's like rock star parking. Let's just cheer them on as they come into work. And so I know that's part of just my personality, but I get to do that within our organization and especially within our leadership group.
Absolutely. I think the statistic is that we spend, what is it, 70% of our lives at work. So
Sounds right.
engagement is important. You've got to like what you do and you need to like where you do it for sure. All right. Last one up, Jay.
All right. Well, yeah, great to be here. My name is Jay Graves. I'm the president of Leadership Canvas. We work with organizations to unlock their fullest potential through people. And we take a behavioral approach to helping build high performance organizations. We have a process called CLEAR, the CLEAR methodology that we take our clients through. And that really focuses on the culture, the leadership, employee engagement, adaptability, and recognition. And so, each of those in silo is like really important. But what we found is if you can follow this flow as an organization, then you're really touching on all those critical pieces of your people strategy. Personally, I just get a lot of joy just seeing people elevate, seeing people's strengths they may not have even known about, just come through, everybody flourish. And of course, the organization's benefiting from that. But the biggest piece for me, I'm a veteran. And so camaraderie, team spirit, all of that is really important for me. And so when I see it realized with our partners and our clients, it just means the world. Because as you said, we spend so much time at work and now in this remote environment, right? This hybrid environment, it's so much tougher to be, connected, to be personalized in those connections and finding ways to unlock is even tougher today than it was in the past. So that's what we take pride in doing.
Amazing. Yeah, and I love that. The CLEAR acronym is so nice and simple to remember as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we've got some great perspectives on the call today. So why don't we hop on into it? Now, our first question is when we're looking at these first critical 90 days, what role do you find that recognition is playing in accelerating trust and retention? And Jay, why don't I hand it over to you?
Sure. Yeah. I think for this one, there's so much data out there. And, it's kind of interesting. Like sometimes when you think about data, it's in your face, but it's hard to execute on. And this is one where I think it's absolutely critical. I pulled a couple of stats, and if you look at these, only 12% of employees strongly believe that their organization does a great job of onboarding. That's a lot of room for improvement. 80% of employees say that a better onboarding experience would make them stay longer in the job. And, I know a lot of people on here, I know a lot of the people that we partner with, they're really struggling with turnover. And so one of the first things we look at is how are you onboarding them into the organization? It even starts before that. So that we can realize, some of these better statistics. Effective onboarding, retention improves by around 82%. And good onboarding can lead to 70% higher productivity for new hires. I mean, think about that. If you're getting that type of spike out of people just coming into your organizations, huge. 50% of newly hired employees plan to quit soon if their onboarding is poor, and they feel like they're undertrained or not paid attention to. And I will say that personally for us, since R in Clear is reward and recognition, we have data behind each one of those pillars. And interestingly, in aggregate, you get about a 19% bump in performance when we're working with clients. However, if you look at recognition alone, it's 26% bump in performance, which if you just look at all these stats, it's a no-brainer. You have to really, really think about how you're onboarding people and how you tie in that reward and recognition from the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's hard to fight statistics like that, right? It's right in your face, it's there, the numbers, it's hard and easy to see. Jenna, anything on your front?
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to the research and the data, I know a piece of research that I quote often in our general orientation is the number one reason that people leave an organization is because of a lack of recognition. And so how do we establish that recognition and belongingness like early on in that first 30, 60, 90 days? Um, I also read a book recently where it talked about asking how we have all these different strategies within our organization. And then they ask a team of leaders, what's your strategy for recognition within your organization? And it's always kind of quiet, right? I mean, I'm sure not at Michelle's because Michelle is killing it over there. But in most places, it's like we don't have like a structured cadence for how we recognize and how we ensure that people are being seen. And I think that's so important within those first 90 days, as Jay just shared, a mountain of data as well on just how important that onboarding process is. And I think it's kind of twofold where when you're new, we need that really clear roadmap of how to succeed, like what does success look like within our role, what are those milestones that they need to achieve and competency and skills, and then with that we also need that support, that encouragement, like who do we go to when we have a question, how do we feel connected and psychologically safe within our team to be able to be successful in that roadmap. So it's kind of twofold, and I feel like the recognition just bundles all of that together.
Absolutely. All right, Michelle, over to you.
Very nicely said. And I'm going to give an unsolicited shout out to Bucket List because we are a client and we use our rewards and recognition platform, which we named ADUSA Appreciates, to create those meaningful moments of appreciation that reinforce our culture and values from day one. So during the critical first 90 days, we believe that recognition plays a key role in accelerating trust, engagement, and retention. So when new associates feel valued early on, whether it's through peer shout outs or manager kudos, we think that builds a sense of belonging and confidence. We believe that recognition helps reinforce that they're on the right track, encourages their continued effort, and really strengthens their connection to their team and to our organization. So to us, it's not just a nice gesture, it's a strategic tool for onboarding success.
Yeah, at 100%. And just to kind of carry on with that conversation, we know that when we start looking at recognition, it can really build that sense of belonging. Do you have any specific recognition touch points that, maybe help new hires feel that sense of belonging in the first couple of weeks? And Michelle, why don't we keep the conversation going with yourself?
Sure. So we see the first weeks as the essential time for building that early engagement. So on day one, we welcome all our new associates with a special message, similar to what Jenna or Kaylee, I think, remembers, and a $50 credit to our associate store to redeem for some merchandise, like some clothing, bags, all the things that were mentioned early on. Which helps create early affinity to our brand and enables new associates to feel part of our ADUSA family. In addition, I think once associates are loaded into our platform, ADUSA Appreciates, we encourage our managers to give a shout out in the activity feed because we believe that recognition helps the new hires connect with their supervisors, their teams, and the company, which hopefully reduces the likelihood of some early exits.
Absolutely. That's a ton of touch points. Are you noticing that it's helping your retention?
We have a lot of factors that play into the retention, so we definitely think that it is not hurting our case at all.
It's one lever, right? Not all of the levers that you pull. Absolutely. Jay, why don't we go over to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, pulling on kind of the thread that Michelle had here, right? You look at that first 90 days is so incredibly critical when it comes to onboarding. And so one of the things that we do, and of course, I'm coming from it as a consultant view, right? So one of the things that we'll do is we'll look at what those critical milestones are in that first 90 days, whether, it's the onboarding onto equipment, getting trained, doing shadows, like whatever that looks like, it's going to be unique for different organizations. But we'll look at those first 90 days and then we'll have those touch points in place. And we'll look for opportunities throughout that to recognize people. When can you recognize somebody, whether it's completing training or, whatever that is. And then we'll anchor that into those milestones. And we'll start to layer things on like values and, other cultural beliefs and things. But just tactically looking at those milestones is important. And then just holding that accountability that, yeah, as people are going through this, there's a system in place, whether it's something like a bucket list or intranet or some kind of mechanism where they can communicate that out. The other thing that we do is we have something called the me sheet. This is something that we implement with a lot of our partners and clients where it talks about like, how do you like to be recognized? There's different behaviors. And, some people, maybe they're introverted. They don't want to walk across the stage. They don't want to have like, other people are extroverted. There's all these different things in there. And so, by asking those questions early on, and it's something that you can also implement across your entire organization, but particularly at the onboarding, then you can personalize even further those recommendations. To those rewards and recognition.
Absolutely. And that's what's critical with recognition, right? Is you need to make sure that it's personal for the person and you're going to have those mixed personalities.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think
Jen?
that goes back. I'm sorry. As we were all kind of going through our icebreaker, right? And there's like so much excitement around like the different things, like that people have gotten. I mean, think about that within your first 90 days. If you get something like that, you're just going to be so much more connected, to the organization, and it's critical. And I think it just reflected in all the comments that we saw in chat. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I think that's a really great point to bring up too, as well, right? When you feel seen and you feel connected, you're going to stay with that organization a lot longer as well.
Mhm.
Awesome. I think that was a great answer. Jenna, anything you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, I think for us, similar to Michelle, we're an organization that uses bucket list as well, and we absolutely love it. I think bucket list allows it makes it easy for people to recognize other people. It's kind of like, how do you incentivize those behaviors you want to see? We want to be a place where people feel recognized. Here's the tool to do it. And every new team member gets a login, right? So within their first couple weeks, they receive that email that says, hey, you have a bucket list, log an account. And I've definitely seen with departments who utilize the system more often have greater retention. And those that don't, they struggle more. I would say some other like system functions that we have in place is we have 30-day and 90-day. We call them reviews. They're not really reviews because it's not really evaluating their performance. It's more so a touch point to check in with them to see, are they feeling connected? Are they clear on their roles and responsibilities? So I think having that accountability in place, because I think if you asked every leader, like, how important is it to check in with your team members in the first 90 days? How important is it to recognize them? They would say, oh, 10 out of 10 for sure. But I think having some of those systems built, makes it easier for our leaders to have those check-ins, because there's a little bit more accountability that way. But I think giving them those logins right away, having those 30, 90-day check-ins, the team member also receives a survey that they can fill out as well, just to talk about their experience. Have they successfully logged into bucket lists? Have they received praise and recognition within the last 7 days? And I've seen those have been super helpful. And I've heard from a lot of leaders, those have been super helpful to be able to get the team members' feedback. Because sometimes when you sit down with someone, like, they're not just going to tell you, all of that information offhand. But if they get something sent to them ahead of time, it just feels a little bit easier to check the buttons than maybe to say, yeah, no one's really recognized me lately. Like, that's kind of hard to say. So those are some practices that we put in place.
Absolutely. And I'm going through the comments here and I see a lot of what everyone here is doing kind of echoed through them as well. Glenda was saying that she does a quick meet and greet with them asking them to recognize one of the other employees, which is a really cool way of doing it as well. Now, obviously, from everything we've heard so far, we know that recognition in these first couple days are really important, but it needs to be more meaningful. How do you guys ensure that, the recognition that you receive during onboarding is more than just that surface level recognition, but something that is going to be really impactful and kind of reinforce those organizational values and the culture that you hope to see? And Jay, why don't we toss it over to you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, I actually work upstream a little bit from that, because, you know, organizationally, people need to believe in their organizational values. They need to believe in their organizational culture. There are definitely times when, maybe some of us have experienced, I've certainly seen where you've got your values on the wall, you've got your culture on the wall, it's on your badge, whatever, right? But then the organization is not really living into them. So frankly, I take things upstream from there and make sure that first and foremost, like, do we believe in this? And then, you can kind of increase your sense of belonging, from there a lot easier if there is belief in what the organization's values and cultures are, right? So kind of start upstream there, get that belief, make sure everybody's in line, because then you can start to map that into like how you're going to the behaviors you want to see, and then how you want to reinforce those through recognition. And it's not there are systems which are great, like bucket list, that makes it easy for people to do, because we're talking a lot of times about behavior change. You can have all the systems in the world, but if people don't see the value of the recognition, or they're not really bought into the values that are linked to it, then that can slow you down. So I think the first thing that's really important is landing and making sure everybody's really immersed in your culture and your values, and they're living into it. Second from there is then you can take the step to link that to your reward and recognition process, and make sure it's authentic at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And exactly like you said, if it's not authentic, again, it's not going to be meaningful and it's not going to have those impacts that you're looking for.
Mhm.
Jenna, let's toss it on over to you.
Yeah. I think in addition, it's like sometimes it's learning to flex that muscle of noticing, throughout the day, of those little things that people do within their role that make a difference. HBR had a amazing article this summer. It's called "The Power of Mattering." Zach Mercurial, I'm probably saying that wrong. He released a book this summer, and I highly recommend everybody read that article. It was so good. But within it, he talks about how important it is that we connect people to how the work that they do matters, and how they uniquely provide whatever those skills and abilities to perform their job well. So they use like this NAN framework. Are we noticing what people are doing, like specific actions or behaviors? So not just affirming, like, hey, thanks for getting me that report on time. It's like, hey, thanks for really digging in and collaborating with people to put together that report. That was really robust. Like, thanks for doing all that research and affirming them. So, putting the affirmation and then needing, like, hey, we really need that researcher and you on our team, to be able to put those types of reports together. So it's like making people in any position feel seen for
Yeah.
like what they are doing specifically, and for why they matter in that role. He did a ton of research on like people in all types of positions, like for us, our environmental services housekeepers, like being able to affirm that like you matter in this role because you provide patient safety in how you clean our room and how detailed you are, and you are critical to the organization. Like when people feel like what they do matters, then they stay. And so I would say for us this summer, this was something we were really trying to push with our leaders and train our leaders, because it's not natural and it's uncomfortable. Some of the first few times you do it, it's a muscle that we have to grow and flex. And so I think part of it starts with how do we train our leadership teams to practice this type of behavior. And then we have a tool, whether it's bucket list, private recognitions, or writing a note, or even just a quick informal conversation where we're affirming people.
What I really like about that, Jenna, is it ties back to the impact on the organization. And one of the things that we found, and there's a lot of studies on, is that at all levels you can have an impact on the organization, right? There was a friend of mine who was a captain of a ship in the Navy, and really tried to do something very similar because his friend was a captain of a naval ship, and one of the cooks didn't wash their hands. They were getting ready to go on a big exercise, and the entire ship got sick, and they had to drop out of the exercise. And one of the things he talked about is at all levels, you're critical. From the cook to the person,
Mhm.
working oil to
Yes.
the captain of the ship, right? You're all equally critical. And look at what happens, when that kind of breaks down. So tying it back to the impact of the organization just gives people more ownership and accountability, knowing what they're doing, even though they may see it as just something small. Oh, well, I just clean rooms. No, you're taking care of the patients in that room. That experience means a lot to your patients. Our
Right.
values are to be patient centric, right? Not just to say it. So I'm sorry, I
Right.
love that.
Yes, it is so true. It's like the way that Terry cleans the room versus the way that Chris cleans the room. It's like the result has to be the same, but like what they bring to that role is unique to them, and our Lakewood needs them.
Mm-hmm.
Like people,
And
when they feel like they matter, they stay.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, sorry.
No, I think that's a really excellent point that every role is important, and sometimes it's really hard to know why your role is important, especially when you've been in it for maybe a longer time as well. So I love that that's the way you frame that. Michelle, anything that you wanted to add?
that's really tough to follow. I just know for us at ADUSA, like we're incredibly proud of our values. So we are courage, care, teamwork, integrity, and a little humor along the way. And I guess that one of the things that I love most about the platform that we have is that um, you have to select one of our values in order to give meaningful recognition or give recognition. And we really think that helps encourage the knowledge of that, especially for new hires to the company to help remember our values and really like provide storytelling through the recognition. So not just like, hey, thanks for a great job cleaning that room, like dig in a little bit deeper and make it feel more personalized because people will remember all the good things that you say. And it goes further when you give it more details than just a hey, high five, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like again, we don't want that surface level, hey, thanks, you did a great job. We want it to be meaningful and impactful. And I love what you said as well about tying it back to recognition to, make those more than just words on a wall. It's something that your employees are actively living every day. I think that's incredible. When we're sending recognition, we're sending them to a lot of different types of people as well. How do you all send a recognition that is meaningful for these different personality types within
Mhm.
your organizations? And Jay, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier. Did you want to start
Mhm.
with this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's why we do the me card. And there's probably a cooler way of title for that thing, but that's just what we call it, right? Um, and through that, you really do get the insights. It asks the question that gets you the insights of how people want to be recognized. What will be the most meaningful to them? We actually have a line on there that says, "What's your top bucket list item?" It's not, but what is it that you would like to see, right? And so there's just so many things in there that allow you to personalize things. So a quick example is I was working with a commercial team, a sales and marketing team, and the sales, a lot of these sales groups will have like these big sales kickoff meetings, right? There's lasers, smoke, keynote speakers, all kinds of stuff, right? It's a big thing, but that's not comfortable for everybody. And so we were able to apply the me card in helping them prep for their next SKO. One of the things that we did is that we created a quiet room where people could watch the presentation, but they weren't we're trying to be inclusive, right? And the noise and the chaos was not for them. And so we created like different spaces and different things. We took it another level and said, like, yeah, okay, people are going to have to walk across stage and get their rewards, but let's take it a step further. One of the individuals, their top salesperson, is very introverted, wonderful individual. And on his me card, he put, why do you do what you do? And he said, I want to make my family proud. So following that sales kickoff, the CEO went out and did a field ride, with the rep, had been coordinating with his family to go to dinner that night, take him to dinner that night. The rep had no idea. And they showed up at the dinner, and the CEO just like authentically and heartfelt was like, this is the impact that your husband, your father, has on our organization. I came out here just to recognize him. And I mean, the person, you would think that their performance couldn't get even higher. I mean, it just went through the roof. So just really curating that. You just have to have something simple like that sheet to understand how people want to be recognized and rewarded, and then act accordingly. Jenna, you've mentioned, I think Michelle, you have to work with your leaders, on putting that muscle memory, and not just to check the box, and being able to reflect on a tool like that quickly and say, oh, well, this person, they want this. They just want a coffee, or they just want this, or you know what, this person, yeah, they just want gift cards. Awesome. But let's make sure that we're tying it back to the values and having the storytelling and all the other best practices that have been discussed here.
Yeah, Shelby's in the comments saying tear-inducing story. 100%. That, what an incredible story, and like how memorable that must have been for not only the employee but the rest of the family too. Wow, that is incredible. And I
And
know,
the CEO as well, right? Was like, you could see like kind of went from like transactional, we need to reward people more, when we kind of got to that point, to I have amazing people in this organization, and I've said it, but now I feel it. So it helps across the board, not just the person who's gaining the recognition, but the person who's giving it and seeing it.
absolutely, yeah. And I bet you that CEO bought into the values just a little bit more that day as well.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, anything from yourself?
I got to tell you, I got to stop going after Jay. He's got all the great stories.
It does.
I would say for us, it's offering options. So it's about asking the new hire how they want to be recognized. Like we said, some may prefer the quiet one-on-one welcome, while others might like the team shout out. So the introvert might appreciate written recognition, while the other loves the public praise. So to me, it's all about asking what the preferences are and the comfort levels are early on in the stages. We might need to adopt that me chart of yours, Jay.
Sure.
But overall, we just want to ensure that we're creating a welcoming experience that respects their individual preferences. And it's just another option that we love about Bucket List is that recognition can be given privately using the platform, which is a great option for us. So you, as part of the platform, it can go in the activity feed, or you can mark it as private, and it just goes to the associate and their manager. So another shout out to Bucket List.
We're not paying her to say these things, guys. She
They're
just
not.
genuinely likes the tool. Amazing. Jenna, how about yourself?
Yeah, I would agree with Jay and Michelle. A lot of it is just asking and getting to know people as well. I know some of our departments, one particular who's really focusing on their retention, received a grant to make some improvements in that area specifically. Is implementing a me sheet, like what Jay talked about. So I think that's going to be really great for them. I would say another piece is helping our leaders recognize that what they need for recognition may not be what their team members need.
Mhm.
We have a number, right? You have high performers are like, I don't need praise. Like, I don't need praise for my role. Like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my job at the highest level. And so I think sometimes I've had to challenge some leaders to be like, I get that that's you and that's awesome. I'm like, but some of your people need that pat on the back. And some of them actually really appreciate when you do that publicly. So even though you don't feel like you need it, it's helping them try to see beyond themselves to go, how do we recognize how do other people need that recognition? And it's not always something that they're going to be comfortable asking for or saying. So just being mindful of that, I think is important. Sometimes leaders have to be stretched as well to go. People need to hear it, that they're doing a good job too.
Yeah, and we have different generations in the workplace, right? So,
Right.
you have one generation where it's like, I'm just doing my job and I'm not expecting this, and so on. And, you've got early in career folks coming in that, it's a lot different, and I think what's, kind of important for leaders to remember is that to extract the most out of your organization, your high performers, they're already performing at the best, right? It's moving that middle. Like that middle, when you move that middle, that's when you're going to see a lot of magic happen. And part of that is not everybody's wired like you said, Jenna, and maybe you came up in an environment where, reward and recognition wasn't on their radar and that's not how they were treated. You have to change that mindset.
Or sometimes too, people are like, well, why do we recognize people for doing they're expected to do, and only recognize when they go above and beyond. And I disagree with that sometimes because it's like we
Yeah.
can still celebrate what people are expected to do.
Mhm.
I think of Lori, she does payroll and her office is right across from mine. And so every other Monday, Lori is ensuring that all of our team members,
Yeah.
right, get paid. I mean, that's a huge responsibility. It's her job. It's what she's hired to do. And I get the email. I'm one of those people that gets notified when payroll gets processed. And so one of these random Mondays, I went down to her office and I was like, and played the da 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 da. Woo, that song, Celebrate. And we do that now. Like every Monday, every other Monday, we have a little payroll celebration. And it's just like, thank you, Lori, for doing something that you're expected to do, but impacts thousands of people in their lives. So it's just make it a little fun sometimes too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. The payroll party, I feel like we should be implementing that here because that sounds like a blast. Like I would participate in that to celebrate every week as well. All
No, I mean,
right.
it's a big deal. They do a good job.
And you know what? If one person had a mistake or an error, and you know what, maybe her role is 100% is perfect, there's nothing wrong. But if one person had something wrong, she would go above and beyond to fix it because you have that payroll party for her every week.
Hmm.
Right.
It's
All
funny.
right, guys, we are at our last question. So this is actually my favorite question. I think it's really impactful. So when we're looking at resources for onboarding, we know they're limited. So how can we make sure that leaders are demonstrating the ROI of recognition to gain more support and investment?
I mean, I think sometimes it's making sure that we're collecting the data that supports it, right? So we participate in an engagement survey every year to see how departments are doing engagement wise. We push out those 30-day, 90-day surveys, 6 months and 6 months, right? I think that it makes a big difference, right? When you're talking to senior leadership, when you have data to support, like, hey, this department is crushing it in retention. We look at their bucket list usage, it's also really high. This department is having a really hard time. They lose people, a lot of people within those first 6 months. And there's a number of factors of why that is. One could possibly be that in their 90-day surveys, nobody's checking the box that they've logged in to our recognition platform. So I think having that data helps set up those arguments as well. We did focus groups last year to develop a people promise at our organization, like an employee value proposition. And that was phenomenal to hear from employees at every level of the organization. Like, what are some reasons that you stay at Lakewood? Bucket list came up over and over and over and over again. So having all of that narrative data to bring back to our senior leadership and be like, hey, people love this. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
Helps us support the significant financial investment that it is to give everybody monetary points and things like that to use within it.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're looking at onboarding, of course, when we're looking at just recognition, but then we're also sending, maybe baskets or that onboarding swag, it can add up a little bit for sure.
Mhm.
Jay, anything on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I try to quantify it. A lot of times I'm working with the C-suite first and then, the rest of the organization. And it's unfortunate, the one thing that tends to get cut first is human skills or soft skills. And so try to quantify everything, like some of the stats that I shared earlier and what that can mean. And we have an intake form for all of our clients where, you know, we'll actually quantify like what your turnover rates are and things like that. There was somebody a couple weeks ago we were working with, and they're thinking about cutting significantly their learning and development next year. And I was like, hold up. Like, let's look at a couple of things. And one thing in specific relation to this topic is they missed their financial goal last year by $2 million. And when we quantified their turnover, they lost in turnover $2.5 million. So I was
Wow.
like, what would your year have looked like if you would have just stayed where you're at with your investment, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what you're, paying other consultants, right, to work on your business strategy. You're cutting your people strategy. You can have the best widget in the world, and it's not going to be successful, right, without your people strategy. So I try to just come in very, very transparent. Like, this is what the data shows. Kind of, Jenna, like what you were talking about. Like, here's your overperforming department. Here's your underperforming performing department. Here's the common themes in here, and they're around people skills. And now you want to, cut back on that? Are you sure? You know? So I think sometimes it's just being able to quantify, speak the language. I mean, look, I was an overworked C-suite, person in my previous life, and so I understand what it's like to try to juggle all of those, but you cannot take your eye off of those people skills. And it starts even before onboarding. It can start in the when you're interviewing people, right?
Yeah.
Like that is your first touch point to somebody who you might be bringing into your organization. So it has to start. It has to start there. And we have to make sure people are supported, and we have to make sure they're trained and that they have the buy-in to be able to execute that, because the output is so incredible when you can do it right.
Yeah, what an answer. And you're 100% right, of course, with the people skills and everything else that you've said today as well. Michelle, anything from you?
Yeah, I think we could show the financial impact of losing new hires, right? The recruiting, the training, the lost productivity, and even the most modest investment in recognition can significantly reduce these costs. Tying recognition to business goals by framing recognition as a tool that reinforces our company values, it boosts morale and accelerates the culture alignment, all of which contribute to a long-term performance. And I would say the bottom line is recognition during onboarding isn't just about making people feel good. It's about making them want to stay, contribute, and thrive. So demonstrating that connection, I think, helps secure buy-in and investment.
Yeah, I mean, words straight out of my mouth. What you said about, recognition doesn't have to be a huge investment. I think a lot of people, like I already said, we think of the onboarding boxes, we think of the welcome gift cards, but it can be something as simple as what even Jenna said of like priority parking, or like the CEO calling your mom to say like, hey, they did such a great job in their first week. Little things like that that are going to go a really far way.
Agreed.
All right. Well, just gonna go through the comments here and see if there were any questions. Oh, there's Becca.
Hello, I am back. I think I took that as a sign that we're done our questions, ready to wrap up. 'Cause I did see a ton of Q&A come in, so I'll be quick with the wrap up stuff, and then we'll hopefully have time for a few questions at the end here. So I'll share my screen again. Just really quickly, just wanted to share a little bit more about Bucket List and the work that we're doing here and how much we love being a part of your onboarding process. We are a rewards and recognition platform, and I know like Jenna and Michelle both shared that there's the peer-to-peer functionality, core values, awards, achievements, marketplace features, lots of things that can help during onboarding initiatives. So if you're curious at all about how you can incorporate Bucket List into your onboarding, we'd love to be on your radar, and feel free to scan that QR code and we'll set up some time to chat. I'll also throw up the poll, but I'll let Jay talk a little bit more about the work that he's doing at Leadership Canvas as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I know in the introduction we kind of talked about what we do. For me, it's very important to understand behaviors. I'm a behavior science geek. But I think we're all very, very unique, and we all bring our own superpowers to the workplace. And so, that's why we take a behavioral approach. We really want to get granular and understanding each individual in an organization, and then tie everything back to them, particularly when it comes to reward and recognition. Um, but this is our process, and there's been a lot of great questions today in the chat. There's some things that just have my brain swirling, with some of the things that have been put out there. If anybody is interested in connecting and talking about your individual situation or maybe some best practice, sometimes a second set of eyes is so incredibly important. All of us can get tunnel vision when we're sitting in our position. And so, having that second set of eyes really kind of helps us have a 360 view. So if you're interested in connecting, I'm more than happy to do that. And, maybe we can just maybe, help in one phone call or a meeting. But we get genuine excitement, pride. It fills our bucket. I keep saying bucket. That
Mhm.
sounds like fills our cup, when we can see people thrive. And that's what our methodology is all about, is pulling out those superpowers, getting people to where they can thrive, and then the organization also thrives as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Jay. And Michelle and Jenna, I've also thrown your logos up here in case, anyone's ever in your part of the world and would like to check you out. Feel free to, would any of you like to share a few lines about Ahold Delhaize or Lakewood?
I mean, I don't really have anything to share. If you're in Minnesota, in central Minnesota visiting and you get hurt, swing by. We'll fix you right up.
You're going to have a really clean room, bed.
Right,
You're going to be taken
right,
care of by everybody.
for sure.
All right. Well, if nothing else, then in that case, I will throw up the um, professional development credits here up on screen as we head on into Q&A. We do have, I think, time for maybe like 2 or 3 questions. Kaylee, was there anything in the Q&A box that you really liked and wanted us to touch base on, or did you want me to pick?
Yeah, actually, there was a couple. I'm gonna kind of condense them down, but essentially, how do you make sure that recognition isn't like a popularity contest? How do you make sure it's equitable and far-reaching as well? Jay, I see you nodding along. Do you have an answer to that one?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to watch out for that because, it can quickly devolve into a good old boy system if you're not careful. And if that already exists within your culture, that's one of the things that we seek out to take apart, right? And to evolve. This is where I think having the capability to track, and that's something like Michelle and Jenna, you both have talked a lot about, is you can track like how recognition's going out and who's involved and so on and so forth. I think it's just, having that accountability person within the organization that does have oversight of that and can just watch out for that happening. And then also, the more that you're able to socialize the fact that, this should be a part of your day to day, across the board. And, some of the examples that were given earlier around, at all levels, no matter how small you think that person's task is or what they're doing, the importance of that, through that behavior change process, you should start to see it widen across the organization. If you don't, then there's more work that needs to be done, and you need to call it out that it's become a popularity contest kind of thing. Because any one of these types of, well, not anyone, I won't say that, but a lot of these initiatives, they come from the heart. They're very intentional. Um, and if you don't do them right, it can actually hurt sometimes more than it helps. And so you just really got to stay on top of tracking that and making sure that when something is pointing in that direction, that you fix it.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Jenna, Michelle, anything either of you would like to add?
I mean, I would just echo similar to what Jay was saying with bucket lists. There's a lot of report functions. And every time a team member gets recognized, their manager gets notified of that recognition as well. Right. So there's accountability within the platform to ensure that there is fairness and equity. I've also talked to leaders of leaders who have said they've rounded with their leaders. Occasionally they're like, I noticed they're recognizing this person quite a bit. Want to make sure that we spread out that recognition throughout the team. How are you recognizing that person who maybe drives you nuts? right? Because they still need it too. So I think those report features help.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as a follow-up question, what about when it's the leadership maybe not recognizing people as much as they'd want? Any good strategies for how we deal with that?
Address it.
We're just calling them out, naming and shaming.
No, no, no. I mean, I think that's that closed door, transparent conversation. Hopefully you have the psychological safety to be able to have that, and if not, then again, I go upstream. If you can't even have that level of conversation, then we need to work on your psychological safety and probably your culture before you even get to the R, right? That's why it's at the end of clear, because if you don't have the culture and you don't have the leaders, trained and prepared and supported, and the employees brought along, then you start recognizing people, it might be a little too soon, right? So I think if I were to run into that personally, then I would just have a conversation with them, and maybe it's bringing out, quantifying it again, like we were talking about before, maybe it's quantifying it, but I would dig deep to understand, why there isn't that support. What is the disconnect there? Because it is such a no-brainer when you look at the data and you see the comments today. It's a no-brainer. So I want to understand why they're not making that connection and help them make that connection.
Yeah, I love it. Again, show them the data, show them that it works, show them that it's effective, and say, listen, we got to get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I think sometimes too what can make recognition feel like it isn't genuine is if we're not addressing those other pieces first. Like, what's the culture of the department like? What you're saying, Jay. If you have an individual who's constantly picking up shifts or feels burnt out, or if we're not paying people in an equitable way, like, it doesn't matter, how many times we appreciate them, if you don't have kind of that hierarchy of needs
Mhm.
in place where people are making fair wages, they feel like they belong in their group, they're feeling they're connected, they feel safe. Sending them a bucket list post, they're not going to appreciate that. So it's like you really got to do all the work down here, and then that recognition should just be the cherry on top of it too.
Yeah.
And for us, I would say that we have, like, we call it a manager minute, but it's a newsletter for our managers. And we put those reminders in there to, use the platform, why it's important to use the platform, and find that we get a lot of traction from that as those reminders. But it really does, leadership makes a difference. So it needs to start from the top and come down. And the reporting options that we have really makes it easy for us to go in, work with our HR business partners, tell them the story of what we're seeing, and then bring it to the function. So we do a lot of work in looking at what each function is doing, and then going to them either with kudos and praise that they're doing a great job, or showing them the opportunities they have within their functions to be a little bit better and use the platform more, because it really does matter.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, we are right at time. So many great questions. I know that folks are asking more engaged, but unfortunately, we have reached the end of the hour. I did want to wrap up today by giving all of you on the panel a quick little recognition as well, with some of these recognition cards that Sarah from the keynote had given to me. So first one is for Jenna. You light up any room that you enter. Next one
Aw.
is for Next one is for Michelle. You help to make each day better for others. And the next one for Jay, you are resilient and resourceful. And the last one for Kaylee, your positive attitude is truly uplifting.